factory. He comes in, he's got the silver coat with the fur collar. He said, "Look at this. What do you think of this?" I said, "It's nice." He said, "It's the greatest ever." I said, "Okay, John." I said, "No." He said, "Let me tell you why it's amazing." He said, "You know Charivari?" I said, "Sure." He said, "I walked into Charivari. I walked into the store. People were in there. I walked around. I picked stuff up. I tried a few things on. I went into the dressing room." "Yeah." He said, "Then I saw this jacket. I liked it. I tried it on. It fit me." "Yeah." He said, "I took out this. My American Express card." "Yeah." "I went over. I paid for it myself. And then I left. No muss, no fuss. The freedom. Finally, you had freedom. That was New York. That's why you loved it."
John and Yoko came to New York in '71, and they actually moved into Bank Street, literally half a block from my house in the Village. And everybody in the neighborhood, we all knew John and Yoko moved in, like everybody heard through the grapevine. But, you know, we're in New York, you don't go, it's not Beatlemania, you don't go knock on his door or scream when he comes outside.
Bank Street was really the kind of place that I really wanted the apartment in. It's a tiny apartment. I think there was only 2 rooms. And we were not really bothered by people so much as in London.
When we first moved here, we actually lived in Greenwich Village, which is the sort of arty-farty section of town, for those who don't know, where all the students and the would-bes live, you know, and a few old poets and that. You know, people that have lived there for years, you know, still live there.
New York, even in 1970, was the art capital. All the music, happening theater, you know, Andy Warhol. That was part of also Yoko Ono's life. And John wanted to be connected with both worlds.
The Village was great then. A little risque sometimes, you know, before they cleaned up New York. People on the street begging for money, and if you don't give them money, they would shoot you.
I pulled out on 8th Avenue one night, and there was John and Yoko hailing a cab in the middle of 8th Avenue. I went, so I pull over, "Get in the car, what are you doing?" "Geez, you're a Beatle, you're running around, you know, hailing cabs on 8th Avenue. The Village sucked you in because there was so much political energy. It was what everybody was consumed with, it seemed. People would be standing on the corner, you know, there'd be a big Nixon discussion all of a sudden would break out, you know, on something that happened in the war, maybe that day in the papers. And I know John and Yoko, that was so much a part of what their whole New York thing was about.
New York was a lot easier for them because they were treated so badly in England. They had very, you know, bad feelings about that because John admired Yoko, and the press totally ripped her apart and made fun of her.
We really get hurt by abuse. We don't mind criticism of our work as art. But I mean, the British press actually called Yoko ugly in the papers, and I've never seen that about any woman or man. Even if a person is ugly, you don't normally sort of say it in the paper, you know, that ugly woman, and she's not ugly, and if she was, you wouldn't be so mean. They even say attractive about the most awful looking people just to be kind.
When I first landed, in London. I was invited by the Destruction Arts Symposium.
Anyone who's interested could come up on the stage and try to fly off from these ladders.
And there was a sort of very artsy crowd of people. They accepted me. It was great. But once I became connected with John, it was a different story. All the people who used to like me were just kind of looking away.
John was a Beatle, you know, he was a pop star. And then suddenly he was with this crazy, outlandish avant-garde artist, and they were sending acorns to all the world leaders. Like, how is that going to bring peace?
Why the bag?
Because we believe it's total communication.
And they were in bags, and how's that going to help anybody?
All we're saying is give peace a chance. Well, if the least we can do is give somebody a laugh, we're willing to be the world's clowns.
They were just a messenger. You know, and the fact that they were sitting in bed and talking about hair, that just made it funny and interesting. But the whole idea was to get that word peace in front of everybody's mind.
I don't go along with him actually because you're Japanese or whatever. I think it's because you are an unorthodox figure.
People were not very happy with John either. They felt that John went crazy. And we both suffered together. And that kept us so close.
Oh, my love, for the first time in my life, my eyes are wide open.
So I want to love this country because this is my husband's country. But I'll be a masochist if I love this country when I'm constantly abused, you know, whatever. And
I've never experienced anything like that. You know that, and that was true with John too. It was sort of inhuman.
Oh, I feel love. Everything is clear in our world.
But there's an incredible romanticism about being refugees. We just felt like we returned to our motherland kind of thing, which is New York, you know, because we really felt that, well, we're on the same page with New Yorkers, and we were New Yorkers in our heads, you know.
Well, I was standing on the corner, just me and Yoko Ono. We was holding Jerry Kruger by the hand.
When we came to New York, the first people we got in touch with was Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin. When we were in London, every night we were watching TV. And we saw Abby and Jerry doing their thing in Chicago, Chicago 7 doing the thing in front of the judge, you know.
I got a lot of different emotions when I hear this guy, Pearson. One is I feel like vomiting because it's so nauseating. Because this is the man that they're trying to use to put all of us in the federal penitentiary for 10 years.
And we said, wow, it's great. I mean, they're like us. And also, we were not only activists, but we had the kind of little touch of theater.
Well, I have a good seat, and I'm. It's unbelievable theater. A great show.
Abby and Jerry completely incorporated the Marshall McLuhan notion in that all that was needed was to seize control of the platform provided by television and music, and you would electrify and mobilize millions and millions of young people, and that was the way to subvert the system. So they were trying to actively recruit John Lennon because they knew that he could turn on millions of people.
So you're settled in New York City now, as you just sang that. What are, first of all, your immediate plans for the future?
Shortly, we'll be going to a political meeting for John Sinclair, who was a man that was put in prison for 10 years for smoking 2 marijuana joints.
In Louisiana?
In Ann Arbor, Michigan.
John Lennon,
and we've written a special song called John Sinclair, which we'll sing at that performance.
Hello, hello.
hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
John has come out in the middle of this explosive era, and he makes the John Sinclair Rally a huge event. 10, 20,000 people show up in Ann Arbor.
We came here not only to help John and to spotlight what's going on, but also to show and to
say to all of you that apathy isn't it, and that we can do something. Okay, so flower power didn't work, so what? We start again.
Lenin has learned that the anti-war movement was exhausted and despairing.
Because all the people that say that the movement, the revolution is over, they ought to see what's going on right here, because it doesn't look over to me.
People are feeling weaker and more powerless.
People forget that a war that brings home 100 to 300 dead bodies a week is particularly urgent. The killing is monotonous, and by 67, 68, it's hundreds a week that are dead. So it incites a now or never mentality that this is it. We have to step up. We have to end this. And gradualism is inappropriate. So we have to block the war machine by whatever means are available.
What do we want? Peace! When do we get it? Now!
We have adopted a plan, which we have worked out in cooperation with the South Vietnamese, for the complete withdrawal of all U.S. combat ground forces and their replacement by South Vietnamese forces on an orderly, scheduled timetable.
In 1971, the sense was that as the American war machine escalates its war, we have to escalate our tactics. And the solution was more militants. We must move from protest to resistance. That was the slogan, and that was the world into which Lenin stepped when he arrived in the United States in 1971.
I read somewhere that the war movement was over. We're here to bring the boys home, but let's not forget the machines. Bring the machines home, and then we really get somewhere.
They thought that it had all come undone with the killings at Kent State in 1970. Remember, the largest student strike in the history of the United States stopped everything on campuses. Many schools did not complete the semester in the spring of 1970. So they already thought they were looking at an imminent revolution led by students and blacks. And then here comes John Lennon to add his luster and lyrics to the uprising.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's an exciting and optimistic moment, and the most amazing thing of all is 48 hours later, John Sinclair gets out of jail, something no one thought would happen. So John and Yoko, Jerry and Abby, they're just feeling triumphant. Not only do they have a great concert, they got John Sinclair out of jail. It seems like at this moment, anything is possible.
This is like a magical mystery tour has begun, that somehow if John Lennon shows up, he so changes the equation that a man in prison is released. So you can imagine, with the addition of chemical substances, what this did to the yippie mind. The possibilities were infinite.
We need John to help us rise up like a hurricane, to sweep this man Nixon and his war makers into the sea. We need John.
Jerry and Abby and Rennie Davis have an idea. Actually, it's quite a good idea. Lennon should lead a national concert tour that will bring not just rock and roll, but an anti-war message and voter registration across the United States. Now, this voter registration thing is actually the key, because 72 was going to be the first election in which 18-year-olds had the right to vote. So the question was, how can we get 18-year-olds to register to vote, vote against Nixon, vote for peace? And the idea was, well, Lennon will tell them to do this, and we'll have voter registration right at the concerts. And this would have been the first tour of the United States by any of the ex-Beatles since the Beatles' final American tour when they waved farewell in Candlestick Park in 1966. 6 years, no Beatles, this would have been big.
They knew that he could turn on millions of people. And I remember going to the woods outside of Washington for a meeting that I thought was secret with Rennie Davis, which shows up in the FBI files, at which he tried to incorporate me into this scheme for the John Lennon speaking tour.
Turns out that among the 20,000 people in Chrysler Arena that night, there's a FBI undercover agent who's taking complete notes on what everybody says, writes down every word Lennon says, the lyrics to Lennon's song. He writes down John Sinclair, "It Ain't Fair" in the Stir for Breathing Air. This report gets sent to J. Edgar Hoover. The FBI's ostensible reason for being interested in this is they're supposed to protect the president at the Republican National Convention, and these people are talking about protest demonstrations. The same people who caused all those problems in Chicago in '68, and now they're talking about doing it again, but with John Lennon in the front. So they've got to be stopped.
Of course, John wouldn't do it in the way that Jerry and Abby wanted to do things, but in his way, he was really trying to make it happen about McGovern to be the next president, and also that we are heading towards peace. So we were trying to, with our effort, we can make it.
The Nixon White House decided they've got to be stopped. And so the word gets passed through the FBI to Senator Strom Thurmond, Republican of South Carolina. And he writes a memo to Nixon's Attorney General, John Mitchell. And the Strom Thurmond memo concludes Lennon is planning to do this, but deportation would be a strategic countermeasure. A couple of weeks later, they begin deportation proceedings against John Lennon.
I know we're going to end up with that clean fucking recorded sound, which I hate. 2, 3, 4.
It was Jerry Rubin that introduced us to John Lennon.
He just showed up one night. He wasn't invited, he just came in and he said, "I'd really like to meet the band." And my jaw just dropped. We had a lot of street bands. The Elephant's Memory is known as a political kind of street band. I think we fueled the energy of everyone in the village on it.
We were the movement band. Whenever there was a rally or a benefit, we were there. We were playing, and at one point he looks at me and goes like this. And I realized that I'm playing there, and I'm like, oh. So he looked and gave me the face, you know. And then I realized I have to start being cool.
Laid something down as the news spread around about the plastic on Elephant's Memory band.
Jerry brought a cassette tape of Elephant's Memory and said, "Listen to this." And we listened, it's great. It's just, you know, they had a soul.
I can capsulize it in one word: energy. There was just an unbelievable amount of energy emanating from the band.
Play some treble, Tex. Play some top. Play.
They were crazy musicians. They just went on and on and on, and John was part of them. He loved them. They were village-type recorders. They should have been in the garage recording, you know, with 2 microphones, but we tried to do it in the studio, and when we did make it clean, nobody liked it. So we had to go back into, you know, add the dirtiest sound we could get, which is easy to get.
Not the distortion, we're ready.
But we had to catch them the first 2 hours of the recording, because they were never land after that.
Anybody got some grass?
I think you understand.
It wasn't too long, maybe a week and a half of rehearsing at the most when Woman is the Nigger of the World started, where I heard the first words about there was a new tune.
John came in with the lyrics, and we went into the room to the piano, and he said, here's the song, and he started strumming. Woman is the nigger of the world.
Is the nigger of the world. Yes.
And I said, what? It's woman is the nigger of, wow, that's amazing. You're gonna say that? He said, yeah. So he put it out, and I don't think most of the radio stations would play it. And we got taken off the air for using dope as a lyric. So, you know, putting a nigger with a, you know, you can't even say that today.
I understood what he was saying, but I guess I was kind of naive, you know, in terms of how the media might look at all that stuff. It was 1972. Nixon was still president.
Woman is the nigger of the world. Yes, she knew.
We're actually on the Dick Cavett show, and then I realized, ooh, I guess this is not going to go well in terms of they're going to really get on his case about some of this stuff.
Will you welcome, please, John and Yoko Lennon.
I had John and Yoko on, and the suit said, we're going to write a little insert just before the song for you to say. I said, you are going to censor my guests after I get them on the show? This is ludicrous.
John and Yoko got into something which ABC feels may develop into, in their words, a highly controversial issue.
So they wrote this thing, and I went in and taped it in order to retain the song.
In the next segment, John Lennon gives his reasons for writing the song and for using the word.
Woman is the nigger of the world. Yes, she is.
This is a song about the women's problem. It was written by Yoko and I, and the song is called Woman is the Nigger of the World. And obviously there was a few people that reacted strangely to it, but usually they were white and male, because a lot of stations were saying, well, we're not going to play this because it says nigger and a white man shouldn't say it. And then the chairman of the Black Caucus, that great guy, Congressman Ron Dellums, Democrat California says here, he came out with this, which is fantastic. If you define niggers as someone whose lifestyle is defined by others, whose opportunities are defined by others, whose role in society is defined by others, then good news. You don't have to be black to be a nigger in this society. Most of the people in America are niggers. I didn't say that. Oh, my goodness! We'll never get in now.
About 600 protests did come in. None of them about the song. All of them about, quote, that mealy-mouthed statement you forced Dick to say before the show. Don't you believe we are grown up? Oh, God, it was wonderful in that sense. It gave me hope for the Republic.
So you want to tell him about the case and everything?
See, we're really frightened now because there's some people feel that we have to maybe leave this country. And
The Nixon administration, in its finite wisdom, wanted John booted out of the country. I didn't realize quite the seriousness of it and what an awful mental burden it was for both of them.
We went to an immigration lawyer who knew about immigration, and he has really been surprised, because he worked in immigration 15 years, he's really been surprised by some of the things that have gone on.
John told me that he had a conviction of possessing hash back in London about 4 years earlier. So I asked him, what is hash? I said, is it marijuana? He said, no, it's much better than marijuana. He said it's related, but it is a completely different substance. So I knew right away that there was something to hang my hat on.
the immigration office saying, well, this is only because of the drug case, you know, and nothing else. But the strange thing is people like Donovan, Keith Richard, Mick Jagger, George Harrison
all have exactly the same
exactly the same record around the same time, and they can come and go, you know, anytime they can in America.
He was a headhunter.
Yeah.
What is it they're after you for?
They're after us because we want peace, you know. We've said the same thing for 2 years, one way or another, and we believe in it.
My recommendation was that they apply immediately for an extension for about 6 months or so on their visa. I went to see my old friend, the district director of immigration in New York, because I felt that he could grant an extension on the spot. And he said that he will look into it.
We better go in, we're late, you know. We'll see you when we come out if you want.
Can we talk to you when you come out?
We have a number of matters that we have to take care of.
The next day, he called me back, and he said, Leon, we want your clients out of the United States. I didn't know who he meant by we. He said, because it's you, if you file an application for an extension, I'll grant a month's extension. But then, get them the hell out of the United States.
You said before that you love New York and you want to stay here. A lot of people are turned off of New York. What do you like about it?
Well, I've met a lot of New Yorkers who complain about it, but nobody moves out. It's the greatest place on earth, and if this was Rome, I want to live in Rome, not in Wales.
It is Rome, you know.
I've heard a lot of legal proceedings, but I don't think I ever heard so many confusing terms. Did you understand anything that was said up there?
No, not really.
Well,
I
ask our
know,
lawyer.
I just know we're still here and nobody dragged us away, that's all I understand.
We had an expression in the 60s that just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're not being followed. Yes, we were all paranoid, but yes, we were being followed. I had a peripheral role being a photographer, and yet there was several instances where I was followed and didn't realize it so much at the time because it would be the furthest thing from my mind to think that I was doing something that the federal government would be interested in. That I came out of my studio one time and I looked at the street and I saw somebody take my picture and kind of turned away, and I looked back when I realized somebody had taken my picture, and there was a guy in a fedora hat. They looked like G-men, and he kind of ducked down and they drove down the street really fast, and I knew I had seen it. And I thought, like, what the hell was that?
I saw the guy on my phone. Those FBI guys were in the basement of my building for the whole time we were recording. I would see them. They knew I knew they were there. I would come in, I would ring my buzzer, and they were around the stairs in the back, and they had their little tape machine set up, and I could hear the click on my phone every time I picked it up, so it wasn't hard to figure out. Pretty unnerving, actually, at the time. More so for my wife. I think she, at the time, she was very paranoid about that. Who wouldn't be?
When it first started, I was followed in the car, and my phone was tapped. And I think they wanted me to know to scare me, and I was scared, paranoid. So you can imagine John Lennon says his phone's tapped and there's men following in the car. And people thought I was crazy then, you know. I mean, they do anyway, but I mean, more so, you know, Lennon. Oh, you big-headed maniac, right? Who's going to follow you around? Well, what do they want? You know, that's what I'm saying. What do they want?
They wanted to make it obvious so that we would get scared. They wanted to shut us up.
They were trying to intimidate them. They're trying to scare them into leaving the United States. I did feel bad. I did try to advise them to lay low, but this was John and Yoko.
When we did Sometime in New York City, we were doing a newspaper, so there were mistakes, say a little harmony wasn't perfect. We didn't go back and perfect every note, we just printed it out, you know, to make a statement on the society right now, right away, and no BS. Just say it, you know, I think this is wrong, that's right, this is my opinion.
This has ended up with the worst ever confrontation between the army and the Catholic people of the Kraken and Bogside.
Sometime in New York City, that was outrageous. We just went totally against what was acceptable in the music world or the rock and roll world. We were just getting to be like Bertolt Brecht.
John was getting very anxious about getting this album out there. It's going to be political, it's going to be different for him. This was really just in-your-face politics.
Politics was in the air those days. You know, you couldn't avoid it, right? She had Chairman Mao and Richard Nixon dancing naked on the cover. It wasn't really their bodies, we just stuck their heads on. We got into a lot of trouble, that's all I know.
That was the record that really gave us hell. A lot of problems with that. And I don't think it was sold so much, you know. So I don't think that people had the same opinion with us.
I didn't really have time to think about, you know, that it was such a flop, but I realized that the political issue was something that probably would hold the album back. He wasn't disappointed in us, but I think he was disappointed in the reaction.
All right, we on?
Yeah, anytime you're ready.
Okay. Hi, this is John Lennon.
This is Yoko.
The one-to-one benefit concert for the children of Willowbrook is sold out. It surprised me, too. So we're announcing a special matinee performance. It's on the same day. It happens at 2 o'clock. That's also Wednesday, the 30th of August.
John?
Yeah?
Let's do it again.
The idea for the one-to-one concert came from Yoko Ono. I was a local newsman, and in January 1972, I get this call from Yoko. She tells me that she and John had been watching my coverage of the awful conditions at the Willowbrook State School for the Mentally Retarded, and that they wanted to get involved, and maybe they could do something.
They started rehearsing for this concert at Madison Square Garden, and I remember going into the rehearsal, and they would play a couple of Elvis Presley, Bo Diddley songs to warm up, and then he started singing Cold Turkey or Imagine, and it was suddenly not this new friend of ours, John. It was like, oh my God, he's that guy, he's the Beatle. Listen to that voice, that's the Beatle voice.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easier, you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today.
I think he thought of the one-to-one concert as a rehearsal for the world tour. And the only way to get around all the green card thing was to do benefit concerts.
Nothing to kill or die for. No religion too.
This is what we had been building to. Here we were playing with John Lennon. I want to tour the universe.
You gotta live. You gotta love. You gotta be somebody. You gotta show. But it's hard. You know it's hard. Sometimes I feel like going down.
This was supposed to be our first show of basically a national tour.
We're starting to assemble the gear. We're ordering custom-made road cases. It's time to go out and tour. It was just, we have to put it off because I want to tend to this deportation thing and get everything straight before we go out.
You gotta run. You gotta hide. You gotta keep your woman satisfied.
And we kept hanging on that, hanging on it, 1 week to the next.
It's hard to get hard. Sometimes I feel like going down.
Like at one time I had this group together, Elephant's Memory and a few extra people, and I was ready to go on the road just for fun, you know. I didn't care whether I was going to get paid even. I just felt like going out, you know. I had to send them away, you know, and that put me off performing for a bit. And then I still sort of did my work, you know, because I can't stop it even if I'm in a bad state of mind. But it was affecting me. It affected my whole life, actually.
At the time, I didn't think anything of it. We were just doing a good concert to let people know that peace is important. You know, let's end this war. Now I realize this was when they were trying to deport us, and we're doing this.
The reviews were great for us as a band. Unfortunately, the critics were very tough on John and Yoko. After the concert, we didn't see him for a week after the reviews came out. He was very upset.
John and I got off the stage, we hugged each other. We thought it was a great thing we did. The next morning, it's a bad review. John never experienced that kind of a bad situation before that. I think it weighed on him more than me.
You know, just one thing was going wrong after another. John didn't take it very well at all. The critics panned the album. The critics panned the concert, basically hated it. The Nixon administration issued a deportation order to try to throw John out of the country. He started getting legal problems. And John was really going into a dark place.
President Nixon and his vice president, Spiro Agnew, again headed the GOP ticket in '72.
Florida, a solid Nixon country. West Virginia, a surprise, going to the Republicans. New Hampshire, not a surprise. Maryland, Agnew's revenge back in the Republican column.
We were in the studio, and somebody came and said, Nixon won.
Gone tonight to the Republicans. Kansas, Connecticut, Texas, Michigan, Delaware.
We found out, I think at the studio, if I remember correctly, that Nixon had won, and I think that was the end of the session. It just totally deflated everybody. We all got very depressed. John particularly was, you know, he took it very personally.
We project that President Nixon will come out of this the winner with about 60% of the popular vote and somewhere between 450 and 500 or more electoral votes.
Congratulations on your victory.
That night particularly was pretty ugly. We were invited down to Jerry Rubin's house to watch the election returns, but we didn't finish until pretty late at night. And by the time we finished, Nixon had already won. But we went down to Jerry's house, and there were still some people there, and we were pretty drunk when we got there, but then there was more drinking.
We were very rowdy, way too rowdy. My wife had too much to drink. I just wanted to leave.
When I'm down,
So it was time to bail for me.
really in.
So by the time that we were in the car to go to Jerry Rubin's party, John was swaying. And I think, you know, what happened there, I totally understand. You know, that he just pulled one girl and went into the next room and started to make love, I suppose. And there's big noise and everything. And one of the Elephant's Memory guys, Stan, Stan was very sweet. He just put Bob Dylan's record on and sort of boosted up. But it just didn't do any good.
But it was that kind of night. And I felt very sad for myself. I didn't like it, but at the same time, I understood what he was going through.
And when I hurt you and cause you pain, darling, I promise I won't do it again.
The next day we were in the studio, and John was still hungover. He looked very sheepish, very remorseful. He knew he had screwed up. He knew as many times as you try to apologize, it didn't erase the fact that he had embarrassed Yoko so badly in front of everybody. And we walked out on the docks by Bank Street and just sort of sat there. And coming back, we were taking some pictures. There's one where John's on his knees, kind of asking for forgiveness. She was still dealing with him. but it wasn't okay.
It's hard enough, I know, to feel your own pain.
I really thought that there was an incredible amount of anger in him, but also because he did not want to be separate from me at all. So that we were together 24 hours a day, literally. So I thought that was really getting to us, maybe. So I thought, well, we need some, separation.
For me, at least, I was not what I envisioned myself to be. And in a situation like that, why should I want to stay there? And I just wanted to find myself. So I thought it was good if he goes to LA and just find himself or just have a rest from this situation.
The years have passed so quickly. One thing I've understood.
Good morning, Southern California. It's 6:19 and 62 degrees in Hollywood. This is John Lennon, and if you have any requests, call me at 520-1974.
I've been working with them for 3 years, and one day Yoko said to me, "You know that John and I are not getting along." And I'm looking at her and I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that." And I'm thinking, why is she telling this to me now?
I knew it would be very difficult for him to just go to LA by himself. I mean, he never did anything like that. So I felt very responsible. And so I wanted to make the trip as comfortable as possible for him.
KHJ, this is Richard Nixon here. Who's that?
I'm Dana.
Dana what?
Holden.
Holden?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, Dana. Okay. What's your request and why are we here?
I'd like to hear Mind Games.
You'd like to hear Mind Games? So would I. Isn't that wonderful? I'd like to play some, actually. Well, it's time to wheel you away.
Before we left New York, I remember John coming into me and saying, "I'm ready." I looked at him, I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Book the studio. Either I'm gonna do it now or I'm never gonna do it." And he didn't have the songs ready yet. But in 2 weeks, he wrote Mind Games. You talk about somebody's brilliance, I mean, it was just amazing.
He was a very, very powerful songwriter.
He hears the chord structure, and then the words go around and around the block for a while.
I know you've heard it before.
But by the time he gets to the studio, he has the words written, and he's got maybe 2 versions, and they go through changes until the word and the sound of the word match the sound of the chord and the rhythm.
A lot of the writing happened in the studio. While the musicians were playing, he would be changing lyrics. I guess he got inspired by the band and the studio atmosphere.
You gotta let it grow.
And John was just a very strong force of a personality. So when he spoke, you listened, You could be in the other room and you hear his voice. He's just such a distinctive voice, singing and just talking.
I was dreaming of the past, and my heart was beating fast. I began to lose control.
John was honest.
I
His lyrics were also very bluntly honest. Everything was right up front with him. There was no mixing his words or being diplomatic or beating around the bush. And his songs were like that too. He came out and just said it.
The words he chooses are for everybody. John talks of his problems, of the fight he has with himself. And that's what makes it so strong, and that's what people can relate to.
You might not love me anymore.
He projected himself, he projected his guts. And the way he played his guitar, same thing.
Temperatures rising, fever is high. Can't see no future, can't see no sky. My feet are so heavy.
It's an honesty in playing. It's not the cleanest playing, but God is the most honest playing.
I wish I was a baby. I wish I was dead. Cold turkey. You know it's got me on the run.
And the funny thing was, he used to deliberately put his D string out of tune. He'd tune up, and then he'd turn the D flat. And I said to him, why do you do that? Why do you flat the D string? And he said, well, because when we used to make those Beatles records, they were just mono mixes, and they would go on the radio. And my Aunt Mimi would say, John, is one of these guitars you? And he would say, yeah, that one. See the one that's slightly out of tune? That's me. And he never stopped doing that. He always, I have slightly, the D is slightly flat. That's my guitar. That's how I know it's me.
This is a story about your friend and mine. There you stand with your LA 10 and your New York walk and your New York
In the beginning, he was exhilarated because LA was a total different experience that he had never had before. He loved the idea that he was handling his own stuff. Going to the supermarket was great. I remember going past this